Hello, I'm Julia Cordova. Thank you so much for subscribing to my YouTube channel and liking my videos. I really appreciate it. So last week I was able to interview Uncle Rico, and wow, was he extremely right on about everything that happened. Big cap growth stocks seriously outperformed value and cyclical stocks, and you can see it in the charts. So let's look at that, let's figure out what happened, and then let's talk about what's going to happen and whether that continues. All right, ready? Whoop. All right, okay. So let's start off by looking at ES or SPX weekly futures. So futures is already open, we're 15 minutes in, but this weekly chart, because it's crap data, doesn't actually update. So we finally closed below this channel line, and just like all the other channel lines that I've talked about, the more chop that happens on one of these channel lines, the more likely it is to break when it gets back down in there. So currently we are below the channel line. So for this next week, what we're watching is 4194 to get back into it. And then if we can do that, it's going to start to look much more bullish short term to me. But otherwise, that's the value we're watching. On the downside, I know this is out in space, but sometimes investing.com just deletes my lines, so I have to redraw them. Anyway, it's 3913.33 on the downside. Okay, now let's look at the daily. Okay, so on the daily here, we're below this previous measured move of 4178. And I don't have a lot of lines on my ES chart, so really we're sort of in outer space. From my perspective on ES, I could try to draw in some more of these channel lines. I'm sure I can. But I don't have a lot of support here. So really, until it gets to this area with the 50 MA, which was sort of this area here, I just don't have a lot going on in between that. So, yeah, and from an RSI perspective, you can see here, from here to here and here to here, I mean, price is higher, but RSI isn't. So that's not looking extremely bullish to me. So let's talk about now NASDAQ. Okay, so on the weekly chart with NASDAQ, let's see, this is like, it like put these things together. Hold on, let me move this out of the way. Sometimes I have to go change this and then change it back. Okay, now it's starting to draw the lines properly. Okay. So last week, even though SPX had such a red week, look at NASDAQ. It actually had a green week, and it closed above this channel. So let's see if that can hold. It's interesting from a TA perspective. So now that the top of that is 14,045 from a weekly perspective, and then a back test of this breakout. So not bearish, right? But a back test of the breakout is 13,463. If we can get it, then the bottom of the channel is 12,768. Okay. So now let's look at the daily. Okay, so from a daily perspective, I've been doing pretty well intraday scalping with my daily pivots. So a back test here would be of this last channel line would be 14,046. So anywhere between 14,040 or so and 14,060 or so. That's sort of a back test of last week's low, or on Friday at least. And then I'd be looking for, if we were to want to bet that this will reverse, I'd be looking for 13,911 initially, and then below that 13,759. So that's sort of what I'm looking at. Okay, so let's look at Bitcoin. Okay, so Bitcoin actually closed below the bananas monkey poop line again. And it did have a fakey breaky once before. It held this channel with a bull flag, partial bull flag, failed, and then came all the way back down. And then it wasn't a perfect bounce off of this redemption, which is the same slope, but below this line, and I mean, I talked about it, the longer it chops on this line, the more likely this line is to break the next time it chops on it. So it had a chance. It had a chance, and it didn't take it. So I think this currently looks bearish to me, unless, you know, I'm all for somebody buying a redemption with a tight stop, or buying a breakout, in which case is really above 42,360. So above 42,360, good. Below this 33,919, if it hits from here, if somebody wanted to take this long at 35.5 and put a stop in at 33.9, I'd be okay with that, because that's really, I don't want it to go below that. So if you're a bull and you felt strongly about it, that's one trade. Or because it does look, in my opinion, bearish, I would look to see if it does hit, if you aren't already, if you haven't already had a position in the trade, I would look to see if it does hit 37.162, how it performs there. Now, it does have a bullish looking candle, just like it did here, but I mean, again, the more times it gets saved like that, the less likely that is to have a similar reaction. So if it doesn't have a big honking green candle into tomorrow, then it's not going to look good to me at all. All right, now let's look at Ethereum. Okay, I wish I'd had an alert on this line. Investing.com doesn't do that, so I'm going to have to move this chart to a different platform, because I would have tried to buy it, because I would have just as a trade, if nothing else, because it perfectly, I drew this in before, but it perfectly backtested this line and then went higher. So for tomorrow, the next level of resistance is 23.50 or so, 23.51. And then beyond that, 25.24. It's going to start to look much more bullish to me above 25.24. Below that, it's just sort of consolidating in, I think, a bearish way. So below 2065, bad, very bad, bad. Above here and then here, much better looking for a pop, in my opinion. Okay, now let's look at GDX. So I knew when it hit this Martini resistance line that potentially we were going to have like a pullback, but I thought I really did hope that it would be more of a flag than a poop. So because we got the poop, I did try and buy the 20 MA. That was a nope, sorry. And that happens. Sometimes sometimes you try to buy a dip and you just don't quite get the right bit of the dip. This does not look like a bullish candle at all. It looks quite bearish, but this candle looked quite bullish, and then look what happened. So is it possible that we get an immediate turnaround and that maybe I just drew this a little too high? Sure, it's possible. Right? It's possible, but it is improbable. Now, the other thing is, if it goes all the way back to this channel line, I'm actually not going to like it as much as if it turns around before. But I was looking at this, and it's possible that we have something that looks like a big W. It's possible that we go all the way back down to this key area and then bounce. So I'm going to be watching it closely to see sort of what happens from here. Even if we get a bounce this week, I'm not sure that I'm going to think that it's the bottom. I'm going to want to see some wick activity if it is. So I'll be watching it closely, and I'll be updating what I think. Let's look at gold. Okay, so this is gold weekly. Again, not the, we have a redemption channel here that we need to get back above, which is pretty much the key, 1788 if you're a bull. But from a short-term perspective, I was going to say, on the hourly, or the 4-hour, and on the hourly, we have a lot of divergence in both of them, extreme divergence. So it looked very positive here, in my opinion, for at least an initial upswing before we figure out what's going to happen on the longer term. Okay, let's look at silver. Same thing, really. Both the 4-hour and the 1-hour had extreme divergence in RSI as well as price. And it looks to me like, at least initially, we're going to get a pop Sunday night, of course, into Monday, which is happening as I speak. Okay, now let's look at oil. Okay, so, Uncle Rico had talked about oil stocks last week taking a backseat and getting, he even posted that he got out of some of his cyclicals and energy stocks. So we had a really bad week last week in energy stocks. Oil, however, this is not bearish yet. However, it does have some divergence still. So in order for it to get out of that divergence, it has to either go way higher, and I'm talking about probably 100 or more very quickly, or it's looking to me like this divergence is going to play out. And because typically equity stocks are sort of a leading indicator of what will happen, it does look like to me that oil will potentially go down. I still stay with that, just because of the way that the equities are looking. But I don't know that that'll happen immediately. We'll have to see. So let's look at Nate. Okay, so Natty, from a weekly perspective, remember I talked about it getting on the potty but not pooping, and then it had a great week. So yay us. And then I didn't hold it last weekend because I was concerned that it was going to jump way the heck up or way the heck down, and I thought it would be one of the two, and I didn't want to get caught in it. But it opened flat, and then it stayed flat. And you know what? A lot of the people on Twitter, they broke the Natty Bro Ho code, which is that you don't talk about it. Or you talk about it in code, you know? You talk about lizards, which, by the way, I saw 3 lizards this past week. So, anyway, it opened flat, and I thought to myself, would they give us the opportunity to all load in on something that looks so extremely bullish and then take it higher? Nope. No, they sure wouldn't. So anyway, last week we had a dip week, and then I had a small position over the weekend. I still have it that I'm holding. So, because to me, this looks like a bull flag on the daily. So we'll have to see what happens here. And then let's look at Joe. Okay, so I did buy the dip in Joe. I did not have good timing when I bought the dip, though, because I bought it up here, just keeping it 100. But I'm not too concerned about it unless it gets below 41.59, and then I'm going to start to be concerned. That would be the bottom of the channel here, and that's what I'm watching for next week. Just stay away. You know, if you touch it, that's okay, because you haven't really back tested it. But if you touch it, please bounce up. Please bounce up. Okay, and then I have a Starbucks chart that I will share on the interwebs. Okay, now let me just make myself big. Okay, thank you again for joining me, spending this time with me, and I hope you have a great week, and I will see you on the interwebs. Okay, bye!